Yeah, first of all, thanks, Mark, for trusting me and taking on this interview today. It's a pleasure to be part of the Young Global Citizens executive team. And Margreet, thank you so much for joining us today. So if it's okay, I just would like to do a short introduction, and then I'm going to hand it over to our students who will start asking their questions. So Margreet de Heer grew up in the north of Holland and came to Amsterdam in 1990 to study first at the Film Academy, then made the switch to theology. She chose this path because it allowed her to get acquainted with a variety of subjects, such as languages, philosophy, history, and even science. Also, it took her to Scotland, where she studied for 2 years at the University of Edinburgh. After graduating in 1999, she got a job in a comic store, Lambeek in Amsterdam, and learned all about the Dutch comic scene, at the same time honing her drawing skills in her spare time. In 2005, she became a full-time comic artist. Her work has appeared in a great number of publications, children's magazines, books, newspapers, and graphic novels. She's best known for her discovery and comic series of educational, nonfiction graphic novels, which features philosophy, science, religion, and world domination. In 2015, Margreet was commissioned to make the cartoon images for the UN's 17 Global Goals for Sustainable Development. Her work has met with international acclaim and has been published in the US, Brazil, Korea, and of course, the Netherlands. Please join me in welcoming our special guest today, Margreet de Heer. So welcome, Margreet. And also a very warm welcome to, I would say Blessed Sacrament School, but it's only Mr. Tardif or Mr. Tremblay this morning. And then all the way down in South Carolina, welcome to W.C. Sullivan School. So we're going to start the questions with Cloverdale Catholic School. And we are a small elementary Catholic school here in Surrey, BC. And I would like to invite Paige to come and ask you the first question.
Hi, Paige.
How old were you when you first started cartooning? And do you remember your first cartoon that you made?
Let me answer that in two ways, because I started as a professional cartoonist when I was actually pretty old, 27. That's when I thought, you know, I really want to make this into my job. But of course, I made my first comic way before that, and I was 12 years old when I made this one. And this is the oldest one I can find. I think it might be the first comic that I made, and it's about the Beatles, only spelled differently because I was a great Beatle fan at that time. It was not the time of the Beatles, by the way. This was the early 1980s, but and I was about the only Beatle fan in the world at that time. But later on, they got famous more again. So that's what I drew then. And then pretty soon after, I drew this figure. And this is, I was reading the books by J.R.R. Tolkien, which you probably know from Lord of the Rings. And I loved those books. And I made a little comic about a small orc. A small orc who wanted to be bad, but he couldn't be bad.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, our next student is Leah.
Hi, Leah.
In what publication did your first published cartoon appear?
Well, the first published cartoon was also this one of the little orc, because I became a member of the Dutch Tolkien Society, and they published I think it was 4 times a year they had a magazine, and it was called Lembas. And people who know a little bit about Lord of the Rings will probably know Lembas is what they call the elven bread that the Fellowship eat on their way during their quest. So that was my first published publication. It was not paid, but it was really, really fun to draw. And I was 14 years old, so I was really, really happy that I had a comic in an official publication.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have one more question from Cloverdale Catholic School, and Zoe will be asking you this one.
Hello.
Hello, Zoe.
Can you tell us about your life growing up?
Yes, I can. Because I was figuring with all the international, with the whole global movement behind this, that you all have very, very different places where you grow up. And where I grew up, it was mostly on the countryside of Holland, which is very, very flat land. And my parents were both ministers, and that meant that we were going to a new church like every 4 years. So I moved around a lot as a child. So I lived about in 4 or 5 different villages during my youth, and I really liked it. Yeah, I had it was. Sometimes it was very difficult to not necessarily to make friends, but to leave them alone. That's the only thing I would say against that. But I got to see a lot of the world already at a young age, or maybe not the whole world, but a lot of places in Holland. And I really like that. And living in the countryside, I always got to play outside and to go into the woods on my own and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like I had a nice and free childhood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cloverdale Catholic School. I'd like to invite Mr. Tremblay now, who is going to ask questions on behalf of Blessed Sacrament School.
We have Thomas. He's literally just walking in. Number 4, right?
Good morning, Thomas.
You
It's
said
so
good morning.
early at your place. I can't even imagine. I'm never awake at 7:30.
Can you imagine a student coming to school at 7:30?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
How did you get involved with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals?
Good question. How did I get involved with the goals? Well, as you probably learned, the Sustainable Development Goals were drafted in 2015 and presented to the world in September of that year. And I was approached in, I think it was May of that year, by the organization called Reading with Pictures. It's an American association which does a lot of introducing comics to schools. And I already made educational comics about philosophy and about religion and about science. And so they knew my work. And then they let me know that they were initiating a program to work together with UNICEF, which is the children's branch of the United Nations, to present the global goals as comics. And they were going to have a huge crowdfunding so that all the participating comic artists could be paid for their job. And unfortunately, that crowdfunding failed. So there was no money to go on with the project. But since at that time I was very much into the global things myself, because I was working on this book. In Dutch, it's called World Domination. So as you can see, I was already drawing the world and how to rule it and how to think about global things. And I had just finished that in June of 2015. So I thought, it's so logical for me to just go and draw the goals, because it's exactly the same stuff that I have drawn about in my book. So I said, let's do it anyway. There's no money for the big project, but I'll make the comics about the goals anyway, because well, first of all, it's fun. And also it's very important that there are comics on these subjects. So that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I can ask one. Thomas will ask one again. Is there one of the sustainable goals that you feel particularly passionate about, and why?
Yeah, well, sometimes it changes from day to day, of course. But I was going through the goals as I have them here in my Dutch version, and I know that the one that I enjoyed drawing a lot is this one about the housing. How to develop communities, and partly I love it because I just loved drawing this, like huge housing blocks with happy people in it, and but when you think about it, that's all where it all starts. I mean, you have to live in a place where you feel safe and comfortable, and only then can you start thinking about changing the world or anything. You got to have your housing situation durable, and you got to have clean water there, and you have to have access to healthcare. So I think many of the goals derive from that goal of getting people housed in good, safe places. And I also am very passionate about it because in my world domination book, as I call it, but it's more about global change and how to think about it. That's actually how I'm calling it in English. I'm going to call it "If I Ruled the World: How to Think About Global Change Without Getting Depressed." So if it's ever going to be published in the US, that's going to be the title of it. And I'm now looking at the thing. Yeah, here it is. There's a Dutch architect by the name of Aad Breed who has made the plans for these kind of cities. He's calling them pyramid cities, and they are durable. They have a very nifty system of transportation and of growing plants and foods underneath the city with synthetic light. And he's thought about so many things to make, very smart, very safe, very durable housing for anywhere. You can put these cities on the North Pole. You can put them in the desert. You can put them at sea even. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about the housing part of things, because let's face it, there are going to be a lot more people before the world population evens off. So we need to live somewhere.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Come on.
How were you selected to complete the UN Sustainable Goals illustrations?
Yeah,
I know you've mentioned it already a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not. I think they just knew about my work already, and then they asked me if I wanted to participate. So, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah.
Who was it?
I don't know
What
how they
was it?
selected.
What was it in New
Yeah.
York? Were they in New York, or was it in the Netherlands? Where were you at that time?
I was in the Netherlands. I live here. I did travel a few times to the US and to Canada, but I live and work here. I can show you a little bit of Amsterdam.
Yes.
It's actually late in the afternoon here, so now you can tell people that you were in Amsterdam today for a short while. It's cold and it's rainy.
And the cars are small because you're trying to save on fuel.
Oh yeah, probably compared to the cars you get. Amsterdam is a small and a city with small roads because it's very old. So they started out with not needing very big roads. So big cars are not really welcome in city limits.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci, madame.
Hi, I think we're next.
Clive, they're
think
next,
Clive-
right?
Yeah, thank you. I just unmuted myself. Thank you. I was just saying, when I was in Amsterdam, what struck me was how many people were riding their bikes there, right? Very aware of the environment, even just from that perspective. So we're
Oh,
going to head,
this is something I forgot to tell about my childhood, because you're all in high school. When I was in high school, I went there on bike, and I had to drive 1 hour to cycle 1 hour there and 1 hour back in the afternoon again. So that's probably something you all don't.
no, you're right about that. Okay,
Lots
so
of
we're
people
gonna,
live here.
we're going to head to South Carolina to W.C. Sullivan School. And I'm gonna hand it over to Madame Texera.
Bonjour. Alors, je m'appelle Madame Texera. Je suis professeure à W.C. Sullivan Middle School, IB Middle School in South Carolina, the United States. And my students are in French immersion. So our students speak French and English. And so their questions will be in French and English for you. And first we have our first student named Kamari, who's going to read her first question for you.
Bonjour Marie.
Oui, pensez d'abord répondre.
Ça vous prend combien de temps pour compléter ce genre de bande dessinée? Et comment est-ce que vous avez trouvé des idées pour vous dessiner? How long do these illustrations usually take for you to complete, and how did you come up with ideas for your drawing?
Yeah.
Can we repeat? Because it's not so loud from where we are.
Excellent.
Repeat it, the
You
whole,
don't
the
have
whole,
to- wait,
the whole thing?
wait.
Say it louder. Okay.
I'm gonna edit it,
Take
don't
your
worry.
mask off.
Yeah, take your mask off.
Ça vous prend combien de temps pour compléter ce genre de bande dessinée et combien? Et comment est-ce que vous avez trouvé des idées pour vous dessiner? How long did these illustrations usually take for you to complete, and how did you come up with the ideas for your drawing?
Can I? Yeah, I can unmute myself. Good question. I don't remember exactly how long it took me to draw the goals, but it was not very long. I think it took me 3 or 4 weeks for 17 or 20 pages actually, because I also had a title page and an introduction and an end page, which is in comic terms is pretty quick. That's also because I don't work alone. I am married to someone who is also a comic artist, and my husband also colors my work for me. And I thought I'd show you all a little bit how that works, because I made a comic about that process at some point. And what I do is I sit in bed mostly, and I draw. I do also have a bureau and a desk, but I like sitting in bed and drawing. And then I scan my stuff and I put it in the computer, and then I put in some basic colors just with the paintbrush or the paint bucket, and then I give it to my husband, and then he makes it really, really nice with all the shadows and the highlights. And that's how we work together on these things. And on a good day, we can do 1 page. And was there another question in that as well? Oh yeah, where do I get my ideas? Was the other question. And that's, I think comic artists, they get their inspiration from different places. And my particular best place to get inspired is in the bathtub. I have a bathtub, and I spend at least 1 hour a day in there, and then it looks a bit like this. And I always feel like there's little windows in my head opening and ideas flying in and out, and I get relaxed, and my mind just roams everywhere. So that's how I get my ideas.
All right, thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
And we have another question for you by Farah and our other friend Addison. So Farah's gonna ask the next one. En français d'abord.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a inspiré ou motivé de créer le genre d'illustration? What inspired and motivated you to create these type of illustrations?
Yeah, what inspired and motivated me? I talked a little bit about it already. Since I was already doing the book about the thinking about global change, and that book, structured it as a thought experiment, which starts with just thinking about what would you do if you had unlimited power and unlimited money and you could change the world. I mean, of course, all of us, all of you, I structured it as a thought experiment, which starts with just thinking about what would you do if you had unlimited power and unlimited money and you could change the world. I mean, of course, all of us, all of you are good people and you want the best for the planet and the best for humanity. So what if you could just, you think something today and it would be happening tomorrow? And if you give yourself that kind of freedom in your head, which I did whilst I was drawing, you get ideas and you come to solutions and you discover that some of the solutions were already there and you just sort of need to implement them. So that's what really motivated me to let people know, to encourage people to fantasize about that and to discover what solutions are already there.
Okay, merci. And we have one last question for you by Addison.
Hi, Addison.
Quelles sont les suggestions que vous avez pour nous, les jeunes citoyens du monde, pour aider à sauver la planète? What are some suggestions that you have for us young global citizens to help save the planet?
Oh, that's a good and difficult question. But I think the best advice I could give is something that a famous Dutch astronaut said. His name was Wubbo Ockels. It probably sounds really weird to you. He gave us as advice, optimism is a responsibility. So that means I can say you have to stay positive, and that's not just putting on a smile and pretending, but it's a responsibility, because if you're not positive, I don't know how to say that. I mean, if you let negativity come into your brain, then things will look bleak, and people will pick up on your own negativity, and it will spread like an oil, like oil, and positivity also spreads like oil. So that's, I think, the best thing is, of course, you can do recycling and you can go into politics, and if that's your thing, great, do it. But on a small scale, what you can do is make someone smile, make someone happy, and make yourself happy, because when you're happy, you make people happy. And if drawing comics is what makes you happy, then that makes me really happy, because I want to see more comic artists in the world.
I always say, be nice. Kindness is free. You can throw it around like confetti.
Exactly. Well, you say it shorter than I do.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Merci.
Great. Thank you so much, W.C. Sullivan. Thank you for those words of advice, Margreet. Certainly, you live by your own words of advice. That's evident in the positivity and the optimism that you have shown us today. Are there any closing comments or any final thoughts that you would like to share with our schools before I close us out today?
I just hope you all have a great day. And I think the thing we ended up on is the most important. Just think about one person today that you can make happy, just by telling a joke, or by making a drawing, or just by lending a hand. And I think if you all would do that, then this is going to be a great day.
Great, thank you. So before I thank you, I just want to thank everyone who attended today. So thank you, W.C. Sullivan. Thank you, Mr. Tremblay, and your student who turned up early. And I wanted to thank our own students here, who there's about 7 of them who got up really early to be here for 7:20 a.m. this morning. So thank you, Cloverdale Catholic. And thank you, Nicole, who joined us. And I'm not sure who Scott is, but thank you, Scott, for joining us as well this morning. So Margreet, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us this morning. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to answer our questions and share your work with us. Our schools are actively committed to working toward the UN 17 Sustainable Goals, and your cartoons have done such a beautiful job illustrating these. It would be an honor for us if we could one day find a way to work with you and have you as a member of our Young Global Citizens Network. You're an inspiration to all of us. And before we end today, Mark and I were wondering if it would be okay with you if we could add a link to our Young Global Citizens page that would link to your cartoon work, that we're able to show that off to all of our schools that are part of our network.
I'm honored.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So on behalf of all of us, Margreet, a very Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. And we hope to be able to connect in the future with you.
Thank you. I hope so too. Bye.
Upside down for some reason.
Merci. Au revoir. Bye, everyone.
Bye.